Welcome to Activate 1 Level 5. We're going to take the structure we've built so far in Spanish and put it into action. For example, let's take a look at this sentence. It reads, I turn on the light and look for my keys. I don't have much time to find them. Now, we certainly have all the structure required to be able to say this in Spanish. All that's missing is the vocabulary. For example, we're going to need the verb to turn on and the noun for light. We're also going to need the verb to look for and the noun for keys. The rest of it is okay. So, assuming that we can fill in that vocabulary, we should in theory be able to say this in Spanish. You'll see below I fill in the vocabulary for you now. The verb to turn on is prender. The word for light is luz. This is a feminine word in Spanish, la luz. The verb to look for is buscar, and notice that the word for is included in the verb. To look for, buscar. Then lastly, the word for keys is llaves. This is a feminine word, it's in plural, right? So it would be las llaves. So now that we've identified the missing vocabulary, if you're able, I'd like you to pause and to try to now translate this sentence. Don't worry if you don't feel quite confident enough yet to do it. I'm going to walk you through it step by step. So pause now if you would like to try to do it on your own first. Alright, so here we have I turn on. And we know the verb to turn on is prender. So we need to conjugate it. That's easy, right? We get rid of the ER ending and we replace it with an O. So prendo would be I turn on. Let's put that up here. Next we have the light, and we know it is la luz. And the word for and is of course y. Next we have look for my keys. This is still first person because you could say and I look for my keys. So again, we go through the same process. The verb is buscar. Whatever the ending is, AR, ER or IR, we always get rid of it. And for the angle of I becomes an O. So I look for would be busco. And remember, this is to look for, so all of this is simply busco. Now we have my keys. We have a possessive pronoun here in plural. So what would that be? We know it's llaves, so my keys would be mis llaves. Now the rest is a lot quicker because we already have the vocabulary required to do it. So I don't have much time. I don't have would be no tengo. Much time or a lot of time, mucho tiempo. And now to find them, this to is implying in order to find them. So we're going to put in para. And then the verb to find is encontrar. And to find them, remember, the them is referring to las llaves. It's feminine and it's plural. So therefore, at the end is going to be encontrarlas. This is a good example of where you have to be careful. Remember I told you before, whenever you have nouns in the sentence or you're referring to them somewhere in what you're saying, it's going to affect other things in the sentence. So it's always very important to be aware of the nouns and whether they're masculine or feminine, singular or plural. So there we have our translation. Again, we had the structure already. All we had to do was fill in the missing vocabulary. So we have prendo la luz y busco mis llaves. No tengo mucho tiempo para encontrarlas. This is what I mean by activating our level of Spanish. This is the level of structure we've built up so far that these types of sentences are within our reach. All we have to do is identify the missing vocabulary and we can go from there. This next slide contains pretty much the same thing. It's just that instead of I've changed the angle to you. So you turn on the light and look for your keys. You don't have much time to find them. If you need to, you can go back and just write down this vocabulary box here on a notepad And then having done that, you should have all you need to be able to translate this. Have a go. Prendes la luz y buscas tus llaves. No tienes mucho tiempo para encontrarlas. Let's try it from yet another angle. This time it's going to say she turns on the light and looks for her keys. She doesn't have much time to find them. Prende la luz y busca sus llaves. No tiene mucho tiempo para encontrarlas. Now let's go to the viewpoint or the angle of we. So we turn on the light and look for our keys. We don't have much time to find them. Prendemos la luz y buscamos nuestras llaves. No tenemos mucho tiempo para encontrarlas. Now let's go for the angle of they. So they turn on the light and look for their keys. They don't have much time to find them. Prenden la luz y buscan sus llaves. No tienen mucho tiempo para encontrarlas. Our next sentence reads, I don't spend enough time with my children because of my job. It's something I would like to change. Now again, this sentence is perfectly within our reach. First of all, let's identify the missing vocabulary. So we need the verb to spend, and specifically to spend time, because to spend money is a different verb from to spend time in Spanish. Then we're going to need this word here for enough, and the word for children, and the word for job. And we're going to need the verb to change. So let's get that vocabulary together. Alright, so to spend time in Spanish is pasar. And the word for enough is suficiente. So sufficient time. We could also say that in English, right? So it's easy to remember. Then my children, you have a few options, but I've gone with hijos. So hijo would be son, hija would be daughter, but children together as plural, hijos. And then my job would be trabajo, mi trabajo. This is a masculine word, so the job would be el trabajo. Finally, the verb to change, again, is easy in Spanish, it's cambiar. So if you would like to pause now and to attempt this on your own, I would certainly welcome you to do that. You could even write it down if you don't feel that you're able to speak it right away. The point is that you just have a go first on your own. Let's translate it together now. We have I don't spend, and the verb is pasar. So knock off the AR, and paso would be I spend. Now I don't spend is of course no paso. So let's put it in up here. I don't spend, no paso. The word for enough is suficiente. And of course, time is tiempo. Now with my children, con, here we have another possessive pronoun, con mis hijos. Now we have in English this combination of because of, and we know in Spanish we'll use por in this situation. So the reason why I don't have enough time to spend with my children is because of my job. So por comes in here, and then my job, another possessive pronoun, mi trabajo. Then it goes on, it's something I would like to change. Now this is easier. So it's something, so es algo. Now here also I'd like to bring up a point, because in English we could say it's something that I would like to change, or we could leave it out and simply say it's something I would like to change. Now you can't do that in Spanish. Wherever you would have the word that in English, you have to put it in Spanish. Even if you don't say it in English, it doesn't matter. It still must be included in Spanish. So, es algo que I would like to change. Here we have modal verb structure. Very easy. Que me gustaría cambiar. So there again, we have our translation. No paso suficiente tiempo con mis hijos por mi trabajo. Es algo que me gustaría cambiar. On this slide, again, all I've done is change the angle. So it now reads, she doesn't spend enough time with her children because of her job. It's something she would like to change. Again, if you need, write down the vocabulary and then come back and try to translate this. No pasa suficiente tiempo con sus hijos por su trabajo. Es algo que le gustaría cambiar. Here's our next sentence. It reads, I'm going to prepare dinner tonight, but first I have to buy all the ingredients. I have my list and I've just arrived at the supermarket. Now, at first glance, many of you I'm sure would say, well, I can't say that in Spanish. What I'm trying to prove to you in this module is that you can indeed formulate sentences in Spanish to this level. This is the structure that we've built so far. So, as always, let's look for our missing vocabulary. The word for dinner is one we'll need. And the word for first. The noun for ingredients. The noun for list. And the noun for supermarket. So let's fill in all that vocabulary. Dinner in Spanish is cena, and it's a feminine word, so we have la cena. The word for first is primero. Ingredient, as you can see, is very close. It's ingrediente. It's just change in pronunciation, really. This is a masculine word, so the ingredient, el ingrediente. Then list is lista. It's a feminine word, la lista. Supermarket is supermercado. Mercado is like market, as you can see here, so supermercado. And often native Spanish speakers will not say this, they'll simply say el super, they'll shorten it. But for the translation, let's stick to the full one, el supermercado. Now it's over to you. Pause the slide and try to work out how you would say all of this in Spanish. Alright, how did you do? Let's do it together now. First of all, we have classic modal verb structure here. I'm going to prepare. So, voy a preparar. And Spanish will do something a little bit different here to English, because in English, we'll simply say dinner right away, but Spanish would actually say the dinner. I'm going to prepare the dinner. So, it will be la cena. And then, of course, the word for tonight is esta noche. But first is pero primero. This is more modal verb structure. I have to buy. Tengo que comprar. Now, all the ingredients. Here we have to be careful. Spanish loves to match. So, ingrediente is singular, but it's ingredients. So right away, it has to be ingredientes. And we're saying all the ingredients. So it will be los ingredientes. But even this word here with all will also match. So instead of todo, it would be todos los ingredientes. It will all match. So like this. One of the benefits of doing these activation modules is that you not only pick up vocabulary and confirm to yourself the structure, but you also get little hints and tips here and there, and over time these build up. So let's continue. We have I have my list. So tengo mi lista. and I've just arrived. Here we have modal verb structure. So, y acabo de llegar. Now we know the supermarket is el supermercado. And the word for at in Spanish is simply a. But what happens is this contracts. Whenever you get this combination together, it will contract to this, al. So we have tengo mi lista y acabo de llegar al supermercado. Let's change the angle now. So we have he's going to prepare dinner tonight, but first he has to buy all the ingredients. He has his list and he's just arrived at the supermarket. How would you say it? Va a preparar la cena esta noche, pero primero tiene que comprar todos los ingredientes. Tiene su lista y acaba de llegar al supermercado. Let's try it now from the angle of we. So we're going to prepare dinner tonight, but first we have to buy all the ingredients. We have our list and we've just arrived at the supermarket. Vamos a preparar la cena esta noche, pero primero tenemos que comprar todos los ingredientes. Tenemos nuestra lista y acabamos de llegar al supermercado. Activate 1B Level 5. The sentence reads, my friend is very happy because she just got a promotion, and now she is planning a trip to Spain to improve her Spanish. What vocabulary do we need? Of course, this will vary from person to person depending upon your previous contact with Spanish. So we'll identify the word for friend and the word for promotion. Also this, because we're using a verb here to get a promotion. So how are we going to do this in Spanish? How are we going to get around this got a promotion? And then we need the verb to plan and the verb to improve. So here's the vocabulary for you. For friend, we can have amigo or amiga, depending if it's a male friend or a female friend. Then promotion is ascenso. This is actually coming from the Spanish verb to ascend, to climb, to go up. So our promotion would be un ascenso. The verb to plan is planear. A trip is viaje. Forgot to mention that actually in the last one. So un viaje would be a trip. And then to improve, the verb is mejorar. Notice the strong H sound here, mejorar. So with this vocabulary in place, if you like, you can try to do it yourself now. All right, so doing it together, my friend is very happy because she. So we know the friend is a she. Therefore, it'll be mi amiga is very happy. We're not saying that she's a happy person all the time, that's how people see her, as constantly positive and bubbly and all of that. We're just saying she's happy right now because she got a promotion. So it's going to be using estar, right? So mi amiga está rather than es. Está muy feliz. You could also say muy contenta because she just got a promotion. All right, so let's take because. Porque. Now we have a little problem because we use the word get or got a lot in English, and we use it in ways that you can't really do in Spanish. So often you have to think of another way to say it. One of the easiest ways would be she just received a promotion, and we certainly have a verb to receive in Spanish. So again, we would use modal verb structure. So she just received a promotion. So acaba de recibir. This is actually a very important lesson for your Spanish generally. Sometimes there's not an easy way to translate what you want. And at those points, you need to think differently. You need to find the easiest way to say what you want. It's a real skill that I'm hoping you'll develop over the course of these lessons. So there was a very good example for you of what I mean by that. Now a promotion is down here, right? Un ascenso. And now would be y ahora. She is planning. This is something she's doing right now. So we're going to use the present progressive. This is something she's actively doing. So está planeando. Here you can see the ing, which is where the ando sound in Spanish will come in. So y ahora está planeando. We know a trip is un viaje to Spain a España. Now again, this too is implying in order to improve her Spanish. So Spanish at this point, we'll put in para to represent that. Now we have the verb to improve, which would be mejorar. And we have a possessive pronoun, su español. And there we have our translation. Mi amiga está muy feliz porque acaba de recibir un ascenso y ahora está planeando un viaje a España para mejorar su español. You'll see that once again, not only are we getting confirmation of the structure that we've built in Spanish, along with new vocabulary, but we're also picking up little tips, which over time will build up more and more. The main tip from this one was that sometimes you have to think of another way. If you can't easily reach an equivalent for what you're trying to say in English, that's when you need to develop the skill of trying to find a different way, but you're basically saying the same thing. So instead of getting a promotion, you're receiving a promotion. On this slide, we've switched angles. So we're talking about my friends there, female friends, right? So my friends are very happy because they just got a promotion and now they're planning a trip to Spain to improve their Spanish. How would you say it? Mis amigas están muy felices porque acaban de recibir un ascenso y ahora están planeando un viaje a España para mejorar su español. Here's another sentence for you to try. I don't like to open the door to strangers when I'm home alone because where I live is not safe. Right, so vocabulary. We need the verb to open and we need the noun for door. We also need the noun for strangers and how to say home alone, plus the word for safe, and also the verb to live. So quite a lot of vocabulary is required for this one. The verb to open would be abrir, and the word for door is puerta. It's a feminine word, so la puerta. The word for stranger, you have a couple of different options, but the shortest one is extraño or extraña, because you can have a male stranger or of course a female stranger. So extraño or extraña. Then at home, in Spanish what they say is in home. So for example, in English we would say I'm at home, but as a literal translation in Spanish they would say I'm in home. So estoy en casa. Then the word for alone can be solo or sola, depending if you're male or female. The verb to live is vivir. Notice the strong B sounds here, vivir. And safe can be either seguro, segura, or of course seguros or seguras. It all depends upon the noun. Pause now and see how much of it you can do on your own. Alright, so let's do it together. First of all, I don't like to open. This is all modal verb structure. So, no me gusta, I don't like. And then the verb to open, abrir. We know that the door is la puerta. Now this part here, to strangers, again, Spanish would throw in the definite article here, meaning to the strangers. This is something that we will get better at as the course progresses. We haven't actually done a dedicated lesson on this yet, but it would be, the word to would be a, and then you would have los, and we can see the word here for strangers, extraños, so a los extraños. When I'm home alone, so when is cuando. And then here we have an I am, so we need to choose between ser or estar. Well, remember from the preparation module, this is what's going on right now. So you're home alone, and also this refers to location. So cuando estoy en casa. Remember, at home or when I'm home, en casa. Cuando estoy en casa. You'll see this coming up time and time and time again in Spanish. Now we mustn't forget that we have the word alone here. So it would be cuando estoy solo or sola en casa, when I'm alone at home. Cuando estoy solo or sola, depending on who the speaker was. The word because and where is easy, right? Porque, donde. Because where I live. Now the verb is vivir. So I live, what would you do? Well, you just get rid of the ending, replace it with an O. Porque donde vivo. Donde vivo, where I live, is not safe. No es seguro. And then we have our translation. It was a little bit trickier, this one, because of the word order here. But even if you said, cuando estoy en casa solo, you would still be perfectly understood and might not even notice that you made a little mistake there anyway. It's very important when you're learning Spanish to not wait for perfection. Little mistakes like these, they really don't make a big difference. So we have, no me gusta abrir la puerta a los extraños. Cuando estoy solo o sola en casa, porque donde vivo no es seguro. One point is that if we put no está seguro, maybe some of you did that, what you would be saying, at least, or how you would be understood to the ears of a native Spanish speaker, is that, well, it's just not safe right now. As though it were something temporary, that it's just for tonight that it's not safe. But really, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that in general, all the time, this area is regarded as not being very safe. So this is why ser came in instead of estar. These are little delicacies in the language which are difficult and tricky in the beginning to pick up. But again, over time, the more experience, the more contact you have, you'll start to develop kind of a sixth sense for when to use ser or estar. There's always some logic behind it if you think deeply enough about it. We'll change angles now. How would you say she doesn't like to open the door to strangers when she's home alone because where she lives is not safe? No le gusta abrir la puerta a los extraños cuando está sola en casa, porque donde vive no es seguro. This next one reads, the phone is ringing, but I'm in the shower, so my husband is going to answer it. If it's for me, they can leave a message. First of all, vocabulary. So we need the noun for phone and the verb to ring. We need the noun for the shower and husband and the verb to answer. Then we need the verb to leave and the noun for message. Phone in Spanish is a really nice word. I love that they have the accent over here. So teléfono, el teléfono. The verb to ring is sonar. Reminds you of like sonar in a submarine. So to ring, sonar. Shower is a feminine word in Spanish. It's la ducha. And husband is esposo. If we change that to an A, esposa, that would mean the wife. Now to answer, like to answer someone or to answer the phone is contestar. To leave is dejar. Notice the strong H sound here, dejar. And then a message would be un mensaje. Again, see where the J has a strong H sound in both of these, dejar and mensaje. This is a masculine word, el mensaje or un mensaje. Now, once again, theoretically, with this vocabulary, you should be able to reach this translation in Spanish. Have a go. All right, let's do it together. So the telephone is ringing. This is something that the telephone is doing right now. Okay, right now in this moment, it's ringing. So we're going to use the present progressive. So we have el teléfono está, and then the verb sonar, so sonando. El teléfono está sonando. But I'm in the shower. This is location, right? So we're going to go with estar. Pero estoy en la ducha. The word so is something that I forgot to mention, and I forgot to give it to you down here. We have a number of different options. We can put así que with an accent. So this will stand for so. Or we could say entonces. Either way will work. So, el teléfono está sonando, pero estoy en la ducha. Entonces can mean so or therefore. Therefore, my husband is going to answer it. Entonces, mi esposo is going to answer it. This is modal verb structure. Va contestarlo. We're using lo for it because we're referring to el teléfono. Finally, we have if it's for me, they can leave a message. So, si es para mí. Let's do our accent here. They can leave a message. This again is modal verb structure. So, they can, pueden. The verb to leave is dejar, and then un mensaje. Just like that. So we have el teléfono está sonando, pero estoy en la ducha. Entonces mi esposo va a contestarlo. Si es para mí, pueden dejar un mensaje. Now let's switch angles. The phone is ringing, but he's in the shower, so his wife is going to answer it. If it's for him, they can leave a message. El teléfono está sonando, pero está en la ducha. Entonces su esposa va a contestarlo. Si es para él, pueden dejar un mensaje. Activate 1C Level 5. I don't want to argue with my neighbor, but every night they play music very loudly and I can't sleep. So for vocabulary, we're going to need the verb to argue and the noun for neighbor. We'll also need the verb to play, and specifically to play something like music. Then how to say loudly, and the verb to sleep. Collecting all that together for you then, to argue is discutir, and neighbor can be either vecino or vecina, depending if you're referring to male or female. Now to play, in Spanish, you can't play football and play a musical instrument. They're different verbs. They don't use the same verb like we do in English. To play music or a musical instrument, they actually use the verb to touch, or the same verb to touch, which is tocar. Then the word for music is música. Notice the accent here. So la música. Very loudly would be very strongly. Fuerte means strong. So muy fuerte could either mean very strong, but it was also used for very loudly, muy fuerte. Then finally, the verb to sleep is dormir. Pause now and see how far you can get with this translation. Alright, so I don't want to argue. Here's modal verb structure. No quiero discutir. with my neighbor, con mi vecino. Let's just assume that he's a male neighbor. If you want to say with my neighbors, of course, it would be con mis vecinos. But every night, so night is noche. So every night, we know the word for every is cada, pero cada noche. Now, they play music. So here we have the verb to play, tocar. They play, tocan. So they play music, tocan música. Very loudly, muy fuerte. Literally very strong. And here we have more modal verb structure. And I can't sleep. Y no puedo dormir. So it reads, no quiero discutir con mi vecino, pero cada noche tocan música muy fuerte y no puedo dormir. Because we have tocan for day play, it might make more sense to have mis vecinos here. But one way or the other, really doesn't make a difference. That's going to be our translation. So now over to you. We don't want to argue with our neighbors, but every night they play music very loudly and we can't sleep. Notice that here we have changed to our neighbors. No queremos discutir con nuestros vecinos, pero cada noche tocan música muy fuerte y no podemos dormir. I forgot to mention that in case here, instead of cada noche, you went for todas las noches, that's perfectly fine as well. Either way, they're practically interchangeable. Let's try one more. A man is looking for directions because he is lost. The problem is that he's late for a meeting and he doesn't know where he's going because it's his first time in this city. Well, we already have vocabulary for a man, and looking for here again is buscar coming up, so we don't need that either. We're going to need directions and this word here to be lost. The noun for problem. This one here, he's late, and the one for a meeting. The rest of it is actually okay. Maybe just this one, his first time. So our vocabulary then, we have directions would be direcciones. La dirección would be the direction. Las direcciones would be the direction, so plural. Then we have the word for lost. It can be either perdido or perdida, depending on who you're referring to, masculine or feminine. Then problem is interesting because on the surface it looks like a feminine word, or that it should be classified as feminine, la problema. But actually, there are a whole bunch of nouns in Spanish that end with this MA, and a lot of them are actually masculine words. So always remember that it's el problema, never la problema, always el problema, and you'll say this word a lot. So it's important, el problema. Then the word for late is atrasado, or if you were speaking as a female, it would be atrasada. The word for meeting is like a reunion. You can see that resemblance there. Una reunión or la reunión. And first time would be primera vez. This is a feminine word, so la primera vez. Once again, try the translation now on your own, and then we'll come back and do it together. All right, so a man, un hombre, is looking for. This is something that's happening right now, something that's going on right now. So it's the present progressive. You can see that clearly with the ing in English. So está buscando. Notice that we don't need to find a word for because it's already contained within the meaning of the verb. And then directions, direcciones. Because he is lost. Okay, so porque. Now he is lost. Do we want to say that he's permanently lost all the time and this is how people see him, that's part of his personality? Or do we want to say that he's just lost right now? Well, it's the latter, right? So he is lost would be está, and then we have perdido, porque está perdido. This is what is going on right now. If it was she's lost, it would be está perdida. This is why we have the two options. Now, the problem, remember, it's always will be el problema, never la problema. Is that es que he's late for a meeting. This again is what's going on right now. So, está atrasado. Again, if we were speaking about a female, it would be está atrasada. And then for a meeting, para una reunión. There are many cases in Spanish where para will mean for. The thing is, it has a number of different meanings or uses, and this is something that we'll explore deeper again as the course progresses. So, for a meeting, para una reunión. Then it continues with and doesn't know, which of course is and he doesn't know. So it would be y no sabe. He doesn't know where he's going. So it would be to where he's going. You could say donde va, but it sounds a little bit more natural to say a donde va, to where he's going. Of course, va on its own means he's going, she's going, or it's going to. If we have the ba a, it's only then that it means he is going to, she is going to. It becomes a modal verb at that stage. But just on its own, it's simple, where he's going. Because it's his first time. Porque es su primera vez. So, it's his first time in this city. We know this, right? En esta ciudad. So let's make this a little bit smaller to fit it in. So we have un hombre está buscando direcciones porque está perdido. El problema es que está atrasado para una reunión. This should have an accent over the O here. Y no sabe a dónde va porque es su primera vez en esta ciudad. Notice the extensive use of this está buscando, está perdido, está atrasado. These are all things that are going on right now. Also, there's a touch of elegance here. You could certainly say no sabe dónde va, but native Spanish speakers would throw in this a. So, no sabe to where he is going, a dónde va. What we'll do now is change the angle to I. So I'm looking for directions because I'm lost. The problem is that I'm late for a meeting and I don't know where I'm going because it's my first time in this city. How would you translate it? Estoy buscando direcciones porque estoy perdido. Or if you are a female saying this, you will say estoy perdida. El problema es que estoy atrasado. Again, if you are female, you will say atrasada para una reunión. Y no sé a dónde voy porque es mi primera vez en esta ciudad. Now let's change it to plural. So we're looking for directions because we're lost. The problem is that we're late for a meeting and we don't know where we're going because it's our first time in this city. Estamos buscando direcciones porque estamos perdidos. El problema es que estamos atrasados para una reunión y no sabemos a dónde vamos porque es nuestra primera vez en esta ciudad.